So today I wanted to talk a little bit about breastfeeding. It's something that not every mom chooses to do, but for those that do, it's a little different than you sometimes imagined. It doesn't always come as naturally as maybe you would have hoped. There are ups and downs and different things that happen along the way. Generally, after the first little while, the kinks get worked out and it gets a lot easier. And then it's convenient. You can feed them wherever you need to without having to warm up a bottle or something like that. But sometimes it takes a little bit to get there. You can run into things like engorgement, mastitis, clogged ducts, all sorts of things. So it's not sometimes as easy as we think it's going to be. And sometimes we don't know that until we start. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that and talk about some of the oils that you can use to help for different things along the way. So the first one I want to talk about is engorgement, which you have to understand at the beginning of breastfeeding, your milk supply is still regulating. So in the first few weeks, it's not going to be what it will be once it all evens out. So in the first few weeks, be a little bit mindful of that and be patient with your body and your baby as they work together to figure things out and get the right supply of milk. But if you are struggling with engorgement and it's just super duper painful and you really need to just decrease your supply a little bit to help with your comfort and things like that, there are a few oils that are said to help with engorgement. So one of them is peppermint. I think this is one that's commonly known to help reduce milk supply. They say to avoid it if you're having struggles with your supply, so things like peppermint tea or just different products that have peppermint in them should be avoided, but obviously if you are struggling and having too much milk supply, peppermint's a good one. You can also use Aroma Touch and Deep Blue. So any of these you'll want to keep away from the nipple if you do use them, but they can help with that engorgement. And also if you are weaning your baby and you're trying to get your supply to dry up, you can use those as well. Now if you're having the opposite problem and you aren't having enough milk, I have to have a disclaimer for this. Sometimes you don't feel like you're making enough milk, but you really are. Pumping is not a great indication of the amount of milk because pumps aren't as effective at draining your breast as babies are. So sometimes that's not great. What you really want to pay attention to is the amount of dirty and wet diapers that your baby is having, if they are fussy or if they seem satiated after you finish feeding them. Because if they're still fussy and they're hungry, you may have a problem with your milk supply. If they're full and they don't need to be fed again for 2.5, 3 hours, depending on their age, obviously will depend how frequently they should be eating. But for my little guy, it's about 3 hours right now. So I know if he's good for 3 hours that he got enough milk. So pay attention to things like that. If you are curious, you can talk to a lactation consultant and they'll be able to really help you. But if you are concerned about your supply and wanting to up it, there are a few oils that support a healthy milk supply. The two most common ones that I myself have used are fennel and basil. So the way that I recommend using these is making a roller bottle blend. Put a few drops of each in there and then top it off with fractionated coconut oil. The roller bottle blend makes it really easy to rub on after you've finished feeding or pumping to help things get going before that next pump or feed. Another one that you can use as well is clary sage. And clary sage, as most of you probably are familiar with, is really good for supporting hormone regulation. So breast milk is affected by hormones. That's how we produce milk. So if you are able to get those hormones a little bit more in check and support them in that way, then you can see why that could help breast milk production as well. It's also, I've heard that lavender, jasmine, geranium can be helpful as well. Everybody's body reacts a little bit differently to essential oils, so some things are going to be more helpful for one person and something completely different could be helpful for a different person. So sometimes there's a little bit of trial and error there, figuring out what supports your body the best, but if I was going to give a recommendation, I would say basil and fennel are where I would start. One of the other super fun things about breastfeeding is you can have tender, dry, cracked nipples, and a lot of the time that has to do with either you're just starting and so your body is adjusting. It's a new thing that hasn't been going on before. So your body just needs a little bit of support as you get through those first few weeks. If it extends past those first few weeks, I would highly recommend getting your baby checked for a lip or tongue tie. I talked about it a while ago and I haven't talked about it much since, but Ben had a lip tie, or not a, yeah, a lip tie. He had a lip tie when he was little that we had to get fixed. So I know all about painful nursing. It was not fun, and when we got that fixed, it helped a ton. But up until that point, there were some oils that I was using to help with that. So I was using myrrh and geranium, but another really good one to help as well because it's good for everything is frankincense. Oh, that's not focusing, but frankincense. And I would recommend using these in a similar way where you either make a roller bottle or a salve of some sort out of these. You will want to keep them diluted since they'll be going on the nipple where your baby is eating. But I would recommend doing 2 drops or so in a roller bottle, in a 10 milliliter roller bottle, and then topping it off with fractionated coconut oil, or in this case you could do olive oil, you could do avocado oil, just make sure they're organic. And after you finish feeding or pumping or whatever it is that's causing the issue, roll it on. That way it can be good and absorbed and not there next time your baby needs to eat. You won't want to do it right before. And it can just help with the discomfort that comes along with either newly nursing or an improper latch until you can get that sorted out. So those are some of my best breastfeeding tips with essential oils. I hope that you find them helpful and then they can come in handy for you. If you have any questions, leave a comment, send me a DM, and I'm happy to help you out. Hope you have a great day.